Hey, Yinz guys and gals, gather round for a journey like no other. It's time to hop on board the Where Yinz Goin podcast, proudly brought to you by Dreams by Design Travel. From the rivers that meet at the point to form downtown Pittsburgh to the furthest corners of the globe, that'll be your compass, your confidant, your companion in that as we explore the wonders of travel. Kick back, relax on your couch, and let the wanderlust wash over Yinz as we discover new horizons and reminisce about old favorites. With Dreams by Design Travel by our side, the sky's the limit. Join Matt on the Where Yinz Goin podcast because when it comes to travel, the journey's just getting started. And now, without further ado, let's give a shout for your guide through the highways and byways of travel, the man with a map, the voice of the steel city, Matt Trader.
How Yinz doing? Welcome to the Where Yinz Goin podcast, brought to you by Dreams by Design Travel. I'm Matt. I'm your host. Joining me today is my brother-in-law, Jimmy, who recently took a cruise to the Mediterranean on Viking. They visited Italy, Monaco, France, and Spain. Welcome to the podcast, Jimmy.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
So I like to start every podcast with this question. What is a favorite place that you've ever visited, or is there a place that you would most like to visit?
Well, I mean, there's a couple different cruises looking at these Viking packages. I wouldn't mind going through Germany. The Rhine River kind of interests me, but I'm going to go off the reservation a little bit here. We just went to Set, France, and I did not expect a lot from that location. I'll be quite honest with you. I've never even heard anything about it, but I really enjoyed my time there. And, I'm sure we're going to talk about it at some point once we go through this, but that was a location that I really didn't expect much from, and I really enjoyed my time there. So that would be something I would recommend to people.
And Set, S-E-T-E.
That's it.
We have the spelling down so you can look it up. So the Germany stuff this is 25 years ago when I was in college, after my freshman year of college, my other sister, Chrissy, was dating her boyfriend, and he was studying international business and went to Germany for 6 months. And so I think I've told this on here that she came to me, was like, do you want to go to Europe sometime? I was like, that'd be cool. She's like, how about this May? So we got to go to Germany a little bit and see a couple locations around there. They want to go back since it's been 25 years now that their kids are a little bit older, and they want to relive the past glories of seeing Germany.
We might have to make that a family trip.
I wouldn't mind. We'll have to get Mary on board. She's been to Europe before. Her and Jason, my other sister. So jumping into things, a little bit of background about Viking. It was founded in 1997. They have lines that do ocean, river, and expedition cruises. They build themselves as the thinking person's cruise, that they are more into the culture and the experience of actually being in the place, rather than all the you get from other cruise lines of, hey, let's have this whole amusement park on board the ship. That they are more along lines of, here is what we are looking at in the culture, the food, the experiences that you'll get from actually visiting these places. They have 9 ocean ships. The oldest one was built in 2015, so they're fairly new. This is an adults-only cruise line. So everyone on board must be at least 18 years old. It's not a complete all-inclusive, that there are some things there are additional things you have to add on, but things that you get with the price of the cruise is 1 shore excursion for each port that you land in. The Wi-Fi is included. You have in-room movies. There are no inside cabins, no casinos. Drinks are included at meals. So whatever you want there. But if you want to, have a beer later on or in the middle of the day, or have an extra glass of wine, that will cost extra. Average age of the people who sail with Viking is in the 60s. So my sister and Jimmy, they're not quite that old yet. So they were, what was it? You were the youngest people on the cruise?
I identified a few people that may have been younger. And I think that's just because they were with their parents that were probably in their 60s. But I'm 40 years old, and I can tell you that it was kind of strange walking through the ship because we were so much younger than everybody else. But we knew that going into it. That's kind of the experience that we were looking to have. We were more interested in learning about these places that we're going, not so much going on, a 2 week just party. So it was more about the sightseeing and having a great experience and kind of learning the cultures and being informed. So that was the experience that we were looking for, and Viking definitely delivered.
And one of the other things is, as we said, that it's focusing on that cultural experience, that they do suggest films and books and documentaries and things to watch even before you go on the cruise of here's what you're going to experience. So here, let's watch this beforehand to get you up to speed on what you're going to see, what to expect. Here's what it's like, which, and even if you're not sailing with Viking, no matter where you go, I've always suggested that of know what you're going to see in the location, just so you are prepared to make sure you make the most of it. They
Yeah,
also
and
give
I
some.
thought,
Okay.
excuse me. Yeah, I thought we did a really good job of doing our homework on Viking, because somebody that kind of looks into these different options that they have with these different cruise ships, and you really have to know what you're looking for. And I think that we ran into at least one couple that was, I don't want to say disappointed, but I think they didn't do their homework on what Viking was, and they were looking more for a party atmosphere. And that's definitely not what Viking is offering. So I think you give a good recommendation of do your homework and make sure you know what you're getting into. Because I mean, Viking, there were no surprises. I mean, they told you exactly what you were getting into, and they delivered on every promise that they made for sure.
And that is a very important note that you mentioned there, that knowing the type of cruise ship you're getting on and knowing what to expect from that cruise line and what their reputation is and what they offer is extremely important. That some people do want to have more of a celebratory party atmosphere, then there are other cruise lines for that. But with Viking, beyond just asking, giving you the preparatory stuff, that on board they have libraries, they have lectures, they have demonstrations. So they really want to give you the most of that cultural experience and cultural immersion while you're on board. They also have the food that they serve is based on like the location that you're going to. And the other thing they give is packing tips as well of what to bring, what not to bring, things along those lines, what to expect, like the weather and depending on where you're going, something that might be a little more appropriate for a certain destination. And since it is geared towards a little bit of an older demographic, that they do provide a little bit more services, like the baggage handling, that they're going to take care of all that luggage for you, that they have people who are going to carry it for you because they're used to people who might have mobility issues or people who are a little bit, in their 60s, 70s, maybe even 80s, that are not going to be able to carry heavy luggage for a long period of time. So they really, really take care of you.
That's true. I mean, there was a couple that we saw in there, and mobility was definitely an issue. And very rarely did you see them in a situation where they were kind of, looking around, looking for people. The only time that I saw that they had some difficulty was the first day. They kind of were unsure of where the help was going to come from, but um, the service was unbelievable, not only for us but even for people that have special accommodations, and they know exactly what you need whenever you go there. It's actually one of the more impressive things that I've seen in the service industry. So yeah, anybody that might have concerns, if you're on that ship and you're going with Viking and you let them know what your limitations are, they're going to accommodate. So much so that they'll tell you what the different excursions that you have, on whether it's a moderate walking, a difficult walk, or an easy walk. And when it says moderate, it really, for a 40-year-old in uh, decent shape, it was more on the easy side. And a difficult excursion would be something that an average 40-year-old probably wouldn't have a difficult time at all. So um, when you're saying that it's geared towards 60-year-olds, it really is geared towards the average 60-year-old, and they take a lot of those things into consideration. So they know their audience for sure.
Also with Viking, their ships are a bit smaller than a normal cruise line. And that's because they started out on the river cruising industry. And so whenever they expanded, they kept that cruising river cruising mentality of smaller ships, and there's fewer than 1,000 guests on those ships. I think the maximum number is 930. So they it's small enough that they can offer that personalized service. Just
Yeah.
a few things. Oh, good.
So having what I found really interesting was you do see the same people every single day. So by the third or fourth day, uh, we stop seeing new people, which for some people they might not be looking for that experience, but not only do they know your names right away, but you start to get familiar with the different people that you're sharing a ship with. So if you want to be anonymous, Viking probably isn't going to be your cup of tea.
Yeah, he told me that yeah, they're walking by and some of the workers on the ship, the servers, they would greet you by name.
It was unbelievable. The way I was trying to describe it to people, especially those that have been on other cruise ships, I said it was almost like Big Brother was watching you because everybody knew your name, whether you interacted with them or not. Everybody paid attention. They also have some technology that I think aids them. So if you were to visit a bar, they would have as soon as you would give your name, your picture would show up with it. So they know what your face is as far as attached to your name. So it's pretty impressive because we did our best to make our rounds on the first day on the ship, and within the second day, I didn't recognize a lot of the people and the staff on the ship, but they recognized us, and they would greet you by your first name, and it was pretty impressive.
And that's also another very important tip of whenever you goes on a cruise, especially if it's your first time with that cruise line or the first time on that ship, is walk around the ship so you get to know where things are and how to find things and all that. Now, the nice thing about Viking is that their ships are identical. So if you go from one ship to the next, you can, there's no, you don't have to reorient yourself. That's actually by design with their river cruise ships, that they are all exactly the same. That sometimes if they're sailing up the river and the water's low and they can't get past a certain area, they'll take everyone off the boat. They'll get on a bus, go above the blockage, and they'll meet another identical boat. And everyone has their exact same staterooms in the exact same spot.
Hmm. I
So
did not know that.
that
It doesn't
that's
surprise me though, knowing my experience with Viking. That doesn't surprise me.
so brilliant design though that you can do that and make the ships interchangeable. I guess if one has to go in, for a service and you need to do a quick replacement, it's also something you can do.
Yeah, and I can tell you that the ships, you should never be lost on one of their ships. They're not very large to begin with, but everything is labeled and everything makes sense. The flow makes sense. If you're on one side of the ship, it's not like you have to walk to the other side just to change levels. So everything's very convenient and well thought out.
A few of the things that are add-ons, tips, they do not include tips. They're uh, thinking behind that. So some cruise lines include tips in your price of the package, you're in the overall payment for the cruise. They don't, because they want the workers to give that higher level of service and to sort of earn the tips. So their thing is, if it's based, they're going to get tips from the passengers on the cruise ship, that they will give a higher level of service, which sounds like it's working. uh, they also have what they call the silver spirits package. So if you want to have an extra money that you can have drinks outside of the meals, you can prepay for that. And there's also salons and spas. So if you want a massage or things along those lines, they have those available for a bit of extra price.
So the gratuities, we prepaid that, and it is nice not to have to worry about tipping. And we did get the drink package, and it was very reasonable. And it's once again, we didn't go on this cruise to drink every single day and party from the time we woke up to the time we went to bed. So it was reasonable. And the selection of what they had at every single bar is fully stocked. So it was well worth the package.
All right, let's jump into your actual experience while you were on the cruise and while your whole trip, that you took a few days in Rome before you actually took the cruise. So you had a pre-cruise excursion there. So you flew to Rome, and on that first day you did the Colosseum tour. Is that correct?
That's correct. So our tour changed a little bit, but we went towards the end of the day, and I think that was one of the tips that I want to say, Julie, my wife, she was saying the key is to kind of go at an off-peak time, and that's whenever we did it. We did it in the evening, and the weather was very cold that night, but it was a very pleasurable experience. It looked, as you were approaching, it looked like it was very, very crowded. But once you kind of realized that people were, for the most part, in a bunch of different tour guides, it was very manageable to get around. We had a very good tour guide, but it was, yeah, the first night we were there, it was outstanding weather, and the tour itself, it's not a free for all. They do a really good job of not overpopulating the interior of it, and they're very strict on who can go in and when they can go in. So it's wasn't overwhelming, but yeah, it was a really good experience. The tour was really good. It was straight to the point, but I think the key was to kind of go on an off-peak time of day as opposed to right in the middle of the day, where I can tell you that a lot of these destinations, if you go at the wrong time, it's completely unmanageable.
And that's true about anywhere that you're going in Europe, with any of the museums or the, you know, big tourist areas, whether it's the Louvre or the Eiffel Tower, or as we're going to talk about later, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, that going at that, they get so overwhelmed, especially when a cruise ship docks. So you were lucky enough that you were there not as part of the cruise tour, but whenever a cruise ship docks, you have thousands of people getting off. Sometimes several ships are docking one day, and then it just gets flooded and overwhelmed. And if you can be on a cruise line that comes a little bit earlier and stays a little bit later, then you can have that extra time to go whenever most of the people are now, rushing back to their ship. So, and also, especially if you're going to go to anywhere near the Mediterranean in the summer, it can get very hot. So those evening tours can be a little bit nicer that you're beating the heat of the day. Uh, your trip was in early May, so it
Beautiful
was,
weather.
yeah,
Beautiful.
wasn't.
I would really recommend. And they actually said the month before us was the rainiest month that they ever remembered having on record ever. But with the exception of the first night that we were there, which we got a little bit of rain, it was unbelievable weather. It was low 70s, gorgeous, sunny days, sometimes partly cloudy. It was gorgeous weather. And at no point, most of the days I had to bring something to cover up with because it was a little bit chilly. I mean, you were leaving the ship, sometimes it was 55 degrees, but I mean, as far as the weather goes, we couldn't ask for anything better.
And going in the summer is obviously when most people travel, but the shorter seasons of a spring or fall trip, especially in Southern Europe, uh, when most people are going back to school or just finishing up school, so it's not nearly as crowded. That's if you have the chance to travel then. And no matter which destination you're going, those are usually really, really nice. First day, you also went to the Roman Forum and Palatine Hill, correct?
We did. Every single port that we went to, every single city that we visited, we did a lot of walking. I mean, most days we were over 10 miles walking on our own. And, Rome, we only spent a couple of days there. And I mean, it's Rome. You could probably spend an entire week and not get a chance to get everything that you want to see. But I can tell you that just walking, there was a lot of mixed reviews that I got about Rome, people that I know that have visited before. And a lot of people said things that I just didn't experience. They said, be careful, it's extremely dangerous. There's a lot of garbage on the streets, and the city in your head isn't going to be what it is whenever you visit. I found that to be completely false. I actually was alarmed how clean everything was. It is a big city, so I mean, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. I mean, even stateside, if you go walking down in an urban area, you might not feel safe just because of the increased population. But where we were, all our experience, extremely safe, extremely clean, great experience. But yeah, I wouldn't have minded if you told me I had to stay in Rome for the entire week of the trip. I would have been okay with that because we really didn't see everything that we wanted to just because of the time constraints.
Maybe it was all the rain the month before. It cleaned out all the streets and washed the garbage away, possibly.
That quite possibly, yes.
And that is a great comment. Whenever we went to Europe, 25 years ago, my sister was unimpressed with Paris because she saw it as it was a big, dirty city. And you're going to get that with any big city that you go to, it's a big city. So um, we can discuss that a little bit later on with my travel tip about a few other things of traveling internationally. But big cities are big cities. And the one thing about Europe, though, that you said about it being dangerous is they don't have very much violent crime. The most of the crime in European cities is pickpocketing and petty theft and things along those lines. So you definitely have to watch your wallet, but you're most likely not going to turn down a wrong street and get mugged or anything like that.
No, so every time you get off of the ship, they're warning you. Anytime you go on an excursion, they're warning you. Carry your backpacks in the front. Make sure that you have your phones and your wallets in your front pocket. Just be mindful of crowds. So yeah, I mean, they're reminding you for sure. And it wasn't in the back of my mind; it was in the front of my mind. And I didn't hear anybody complain about those issues. However, most of the places that we went to, we did a really good job of going in off-peak hours and times. So we might not have gotten the full experience of being put in a situation in a strange location with people that don't speak your same language, and you're not familiar with your surroundings. But I felt safe the entire time, and I'll be quite honest with you. The stories that they were warning us about, we didn't experience anything, and we would talk to a lot of the other passengers, and everybody says the same exact thing. It wasn't that they never felt in danger of being pickpocketed, but I mean, that was just our experience. So obviously they're giving warnings for a reason, but in our experience, we had no problems.
Always good to hear. Next day, you guys went to the Vatican, the Castel Sant'Angelo, and well, I never took Italian, so I want to butcher some of these names. Was that Lungatevere and Ponte Umberto, the Basilica di Santa Maria Maggiore.
So we kind of changed the itinerary a little bit. So
Okay.
That second day, yes, we did go to the Vatican, and I'm sitting here talking about going to off-peak times and days and time of the year. I could tell you that the Vatican was overwhelming, the amount of people that were there. There was nothing. There wasn't a special occasion. The day that we were there, it was extremely overwhelming with people. Just to get in, we did have a tour originally scheduled. It got canceled on us, and we never rebooked it. And we said if we were going to go in, we'll just and see what the wait was. It was over 2 hour wait to get in, and we got there relatively early in the day, definitely before noon. We started most of our days extremely early, and we would walk before a lot of our excursions or right after in the evening. But most of our trips, we did our best to kind of see as much as we could before we went on these tours and kind of go in the opposite direction of where our excursion or tours were going. But Vatican, it was more of seeing the sights from the outside of the buildings than it was the inside. It was pretty much impossible. If we were to go inside of any of the major attractions there's no way that we would have been able to get to the rest of the things that we wanted to see. But on our way back, and it was an experience. I can tell you that for how impressed I was for how they handled things at the Colosseum. Things weren't handled very well in the Vatican as far as crowd control. And they tried to divert people in different ways, but it was just everywhere you would go, you're just walking right into hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. So we kind of made the decision, let's use our time as wisely as we can. So we walked all the way from the Vatican. We took an Uber down there, and then we walked back. And on our way back, we saw the Trevi Fountain, which, depending on the time of day that you go there, if you go later in the evening, not too many people there. It was absolutely gorgeous. Pantheon, we went there early in the morning. I believe we went and we saw the Pantheon, and that was another one where it is hard to get in there because they limit the amount of people that can visit at a certain time. So if you make sure that you have everything planned well in advance, because if you show up the day of, chances of you getting a good time or getting in to see these things, not it's not going to be great. But um, yeah, I mean, we made the most of our time, but the Vatican was something that if you're going specifically for the Vatican, make sure you have your day planned and you have tickets purchased and you have your tours and you know what your tour is like. So a lot of the feedback that we got from people that went on tours, where even though you might have a tour, they run you through there as quickly as possible. So if you're going through the Sistine Chapel, they're saying it may be a 2 hour tour, but you might only spend less than 20 minutes inside. So know what you're getting into with that, because there were some unhappy people for sure.
And what you mentioned before about having everything planned is that in most European cities, you can get a museum pass. I know it's specifically true about Paris, that you can get the pass that will go to, the Louvre and the Bastille and whatever else you want to see. That a lot of the lines that people are waiting in are waiting to buy the passes or buy their tickets to enter, not necessarily to get into the museum. So if you pre-purchase that museum pass or have your tickets for whatever already in hand, you can skip those big long lines, and it's not nearly as daunting as it looks from the outside. So
Absolutely, and there's things that you can go and visit that don't require. For example, we went and saw the Spanish Steps, and it was a great environment around there. It's an open air type of environment where you don't need tickets for it, but it was an outstanding walk for us that very easy to navigate through Rome for sure. But there's a lot of things that you don't need tickets for, but you have to know the difference between the two, because if you're just looking at the sites that you want to go see in a certain place, especially like Rome, um, I was uneducated until I showed up to these places, and um, Julie wasn't. My wife wasn't. She definitely knew what we were doing, what we had to do. But I would show up expecting a long line to get in, for example, to go see the Spanish Steps. I didn't know there was an open air type of situation, but that would be something where if you're looking to fill some time, it's not going to cost you anything, and it's something that you can see. It's worth seeing. But there's that Rome is full of that, so it's not just the places where you need to get permission to go into and have tickets and a tour guide. There's a lot of things that you can just walk and see on your own. That's what I loved about Rome. It's you couldn't go 2 blocks without running into something.
And just a little background on my sister, she's an architect. So going to Rome and seeing all of the architectural designs and the different columns and different eras of that's like right up her alley. And that's was probably one of the main reasons that she wanted to go to see on this trip.
That's true. The main reason I wanted to go on the trip was to go with her. She wanted to go to actually see the sights. I just wanted to go on a European trip.
So before we jump into the cruise, was there anything else you wanted to add about your time in Rome?
Yeah. So the hotel that we stayed in, it was called Dharma, the Dharma Spa. I forget exactly the name of it, but it was, if anybody's going to Rome, that was such a, keep in mind, that's the first place that we went when we got off our flight, and it was the most uh, welcoming environment, and they're very open and they love having Americans there. So if you're looking for somewhere that is going to take care of you and give you a ton of great information, I've really kind of look into, and there's more than one location. So the Dharma hotel that we stayed at was about, I'd say, less than a half a mile away from um um I'm losing my mind here, Matt. Help me out here.
The
Pause me.
Colosseum, the Spanish
Oh yeah,
Steps.
yeah, there you go. From the Coliseum. So we were in the middle of everything, and the recommendations that they gave us for restaurants and for things to see and simple amenities, everything was really close to us. So if you're looking for something, um, a great place to stay, we've already recommended to a couple of people, and we couldn't recommend it highly enough. But Dharma is the place to look if you're looking for a really, and price wise, it was extremely reasonable, and it's any site that you go on, they're ranked extremely high, but I think there's only 14 rooms, so it's tough to get in there.
Yeah, so definitely plan these well ahead of time. So the actual cruise that you went on was a 7 night cruise on the Viking Mars. You went to Florence and Pisa, Monte Carlo, Toulon, Montpellier, and Barcelona. So
Yes.
Starting off with Florence and Pisa, I saw some awesome pictures of you and my sister with the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Of course, the stereotypical holding it up, keeping it from falling.
Not my style, but I had to do it. I didn't want to be that guy that went all the way to Pisa and not do it. But yeah, it was now that absolutely is set up. That area is absolutely set up for tourists. That isn't something that where you show up and you're surprised by anything. I mean, that's a tourist trap for sure. Not saying that it was a bad experience. It was a great experience. It's definitely something worth seeing. But when you go there, there's not much around it. So you go to Rome and you can go and sightsee, one or two things, and then walk in any direction and run into something else that's going to catch your attention. When we went to Pisa, they had a bus us there, and we spent a couple of hours, but it was pretty straightforward. But we didn't go to Florence. It was just Pisa that day, so we kind of adjusted our sightseeing specifically just to do a lot of walking around Rome and to handle to do Pisa on our own. So
Did you actually go up into the tower?
we did it, and that's another thing where I think they allow it's a very small number of people, and that's booked out a long time in advance, and it's very difficult to get tickets. And there were people there that were trying to get tickets, and the line for that was extreme. But they don't take it's from what I understand, years and years ago, they would just send people up, and it would just be a steady stream of people, and it wasn't kind of respecting the building and the structure the way it needed to be, and they were worried about the degradation of it. So they really limit the amount of people that go in there. Be quite honest with you, I didn't have a lot of interest in going in. I had more of an interest of seeing on the outside, but um, I want to say it was less than 20 people every 15 minutes was allowed in the building. So if you do the math, that's not a lot of people in one day.
Yeah, and I know that several years ago they went through an extensive restoration process on that of making sure that it does not fall over, and they keep it at that nice tilt because that is the tourist attract. That's why people go to Pisa, and if that tower would either get completely straightened or go away in some way, shape, or form,
No,
or
that's true. That's it. They our tour guide went spoke to us at length about that, saying that they easily could have fixed it, and we're talking years and years ago. That hey, we can fix this, but they chose not to because it is making a lot of money. They actually made a comment said there's 30,000 people a day that come through there, and even if half of them use a bathroom at €1 a day, they're making a decent amount of money just on people using their restrooms there. So, yeah, they don't want to straighten that thing out, and they did what they were worried about was through their investigation and through their calculations that at some point that it was going to eventually fall, and they went at length to and there's a lot of architecture and engineering that goes into it, and you don't realize because it's so ancient. But yeah, it's not going anywhere, and they're going to do their best to keep that thing landing at that perfect angle.
although the funny thing that you told us is that most people get their picture trying to hold up the Leaning Tower of Pisa, but if you get a picture of you trying to push it over, that's mean you're from one of the rival towns.
Yes, yes, that was parts. They said, yeah, they do have a couple rival towns that were saying they'll come over there and they'll do that, and that was kind of funny because that's we were seeing people doing like what I've never seen that before. But yeah, there's a certain kind of person on that part of the world that want to do that. And, we have Cleveland and Pittsburgh, and I guess they have their dejectors as well.
So I know that the cruise ship stopped in Florence. Did you do anything there?
We didn't. No,
Okay.
no.
Next up was Monte Carlo. And
Yes. So Monaco. Here's what I could tell you about Monaco. You could look at pictures. I can tell you stories, but until you go there, uh, it looks like something out of a movie. It is, and I guess that's the reason why it is in so many different movies because it is something to see. If you have an opportunity to travel that part of the world, you have to at least spend a day there. It's not very big, so I can argue that one day there is plenty of time because from our cruise ship, we could take a picture of the entire country. It's not very big. You literally can walk from one end to the other at a very slow pace in under an hour. But it is it is gorgeous. And there's some interesting things they were teaching us about that. about the country. And when people talk about Monte Carlo, the first thing they talk about is the casino. I'm not a gambler. Julie's not a gambler, so we weren't so interested in that. What we're more interested in was, the sights and kind of just checking out the country itself. But what's very interesting is if you want to be a resident, they have rules there, specific rules. You have to live there at least half the year, so it can't just be something where you drop by for a quick vacation, once every couple months and just stay the weekend. You have to live there half the year. You have to open a bank account for whatever reason. You have to open a bank account. I'm assuming they want to make sure they know what business that you're doing there, and that goes in the same vein as you're not allowed to have a criminal record. No criminal record, and you're not allowed to gamble. So even though people will talk about Monaco and Monte Carlo as that's the place to go, high stakes gambling, and maybe potentially maybe the per capita the richest place that we visited on our tour. They want to make sure it's safe to live there and safe to visit. And they actually made a joke. They pointed out the prison. They said, "Hey, there's our prison, and if you were to break the law, they'll stick you up there for a day or two, and you'll have nice sights of the water. And after a couple days, we'll just let you go." And as an American, you kind of chuckle at that because, like, that's the system that you're that's how you handle your criminals. And she was like, "Yeah, we don't have much crime here." So I think those things they have in place is to ensure that the way that Monaco operates is always going to be the way that Monaco operates. But it's definitely something to see. It's gorgeous. You can't walk 5 minutes in any direction where there's not a garden named after somebody. Typically, Grace Kelly. For those of you unfamiliar, she married the leader over there, and everything seems to be named after her or in honor of her. And she obviously got extremely famous through film, but over there, she is definitely their princess for sure. But it was something to see. The beauty of that country, I can't. It's hard to put in words. And when I'm looking at the pictures that we took, it really doesn't do it justice for sure.
Yeah, Grace Kelly married Prince Rainier III years ago. Um, Depending on when you go to Monaco, they do have the Grand Prix there. So if you like, was that Formula One racing, um, you can catch that site. If you want to be a full-time gambler, then I guess you're gonna have to go to Vegas instead of Monte Carlo, since
So we actually went at the perfect time. They were setting up the grandstands for the race, and they used their real everyday roads. So we actually were able to walk on the racetrack, and they were still setting things up. And just this past weekend, I believe they had their big Formula One race there. But the weekend after we visited, there was another race that was being held there as well. But kind of cool to see because you see it in the movies all the time, and when you see it in person, it kind of gives you pause. But yeah, and if you are a gambler, there's a lot of rules as far as gambling there. There's a dress code. Uh, and they're strict. And the reason why they're strict is because they have expectations of keeping gambling the way in its purest form, I guess, without bringing in the underbelly element that you kind of see in other countries. But if it's an experience to go to Monaco, and if you have an opportunity and you're a gambler, just make sure you dress appropriately for it because you will not be allowed in if you're not wearing the correct clothes.
yeah, and you said you're not a big gambler, neither am I. It's with me, it's usually losing, not gambling. Gambling says there's a chance I can win. With me, just spending money.
That's true. Yeah, that's part of it with me as well. I've never found interest in it, but if there were a lot of people on our on the Viking cruise that was kind of the crown jewel of their trip, and they made the most of it.
Moving on, the next stop was Toulon.
So Toulon was a change to our trip because we were originally supposed to go to Marseille, and they had to cancel it because the Olympic torch was being run the day that we were supposed to dock, and they switched us to Toulon. Toulon definitely, I would say, was the stop that I enjoyed the least. It was still something to see. I wouldn't go out of my way to go back there. We did a bus tour, and here's what I could tell you about the city. I was glad that we went there because it was like a real European working class city. So, you go to Rome and everything's kind of, preserved and, highlighted in a certain way. And there's tourist traps all over the place. Toulon was a real city. Wasn't much for us to see. It was just like every single port that we went to, there was a lot of dining and a little bit of entertainment on the water, and it was a really beautiful area. But as far as the town goes, people are there to live their lives and make a living. They're not there to entertain tourists, that's for sure.
And that can be a nice experience, as you said, of here's what it's really like in Europe. And that's what I've heard recommended from other people who are consistent European travelers, is that if you want the experience of what it's like to live in Europe, to go to some of the smaller towns. So go away from Paris, go away from Rome, you know, to see these smaller towns that you can really get an idea of here's what life is like. So in terms of being a cultural experience, wonderful. In terms of being a here entertain me experience, not so much.
That's right. That's right. You're absolutely right. And that's what we found with Toulon. It was a real city. It was a real city. But it just wasn't really entertaining for us, at least, especially because, I mean, think about what I was just describing to you the day earlier that we saw. So we go from Monaco to Toulon. It was kind of, oh, unbelievable to this is how the real people in this part of the world live. So
In the movie Wayne's World, they're doing some like green screen stuff and they're putting different backgrounds and they're like, yeah, I'm in New York, let's get a gun and go see a Broadway show. Then it's like, hey, we're in Texas, let's go on a rodeo. Then it's, hi, we're in Delaware. Okay.
right.
So
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That was kind of what it was like. Well, one interesting thing is, I mean, their Toulon is actually going to host a sailing competition for the Olympics. So, I mean, it can accommodate people, but they're not there to entertain you. And they do have a really nice area where they can kind of host a sailing competition because they have seatings. They have a lot of seating that's set up on the side, and they do have restaurants there. But um, like I said, it was a working class town, not necessarily made for you to kind of enjoy yourself as a tourist.
your next stop was Montpelier.
Yes, that's what it said. But really, I mean, we docked at Set, and this was kind of my opening when you were asking me. I thoroughly enjoyed Set, and the reason why I think that I thoroughly enjoyed it was because out of all these towns that we visited, and all these different ports that we went, and all these different places, I think Set is the area that I would say, you know what, I could live the rest of my life here, and it was absolutely gorgeous. Um, and that too was another one. I mean, it was sort of set up. There were some touristy things to see, but for the most part, it was another working class town, and I could I could visit there every vacation and be perfectly happy. I love the area. The people, they say a lot about the French people where they're not going to overly accommodate uh, the tourists, especially the Americans. But here's what I could tell you: our experience was, especially in Set, they were willing to work with you, but they just weren't going to bend over backwards. They understood every word that you were saying, but if you wanted something from them, you better figure out a little bit of French and kind of speak it to them. But it was a gorgeous town. They have a marketplace that if anybody has an opportunity to go there, go and check out their marketplace. It was an experience. It was an open air type marketplace. The sites were second to none as far as I was concerned. And I don't know if a lot of this has to come because I didn't expect a lot from it. I've never heard of it. So my expectations were I don't want to say low, but I had really no high expectations. And the sites and the environment, unbelievable. We had a tour, we had a walking tour, and she showed us everything that we wanted to see and more. The stories they were telling about the town, it really had its own kind of vibe, and the people seemed like pretty proud people. They even had some of their own food and delicacies that was specific to that region that they said, you can find this in other parts of the Mediterranean, but really this is kind of, we're known for, it was this dish called TL. TL. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that. I don't know if you've heard of it, Matt, but it was like a pastry, but inside it was like a tomato paste with squid or octopus. And they had that on, you couldn't go more than a block or two without somebody selling that or advertising it. But it was delicious. It was very good. It's served cold, but stuff like that, it's like, wow, this kind of has its own vibe. And it was one that it was really agreeable to me for sure.
So you mentioned the food. Were there any other places that just wowed you with the food you were eating?
I mean, in Rome, every single place that you went by or you stopped at, we tried to eat as much as we could. You know what they say, when you're in Rome. So here's what blew me away. Every corner store or restaurant that served sandwiches, they were all unique. It was all extremely high quality, very clean food, simple food, delicious. Uh, it was a huge difference. Every single country that we visited, their food was so much cleaner and healthier and straight to the point. It was just delicious and pure. I mean, that was my number one takeaway. People say, there's a ton of differences. Obviously, you're halfway around the world, but the food, it was unbelievable. I don't want to point out one place or another because I'm the wrong person to ask about food because I have such I'd say an unsophisticated palate, and I kind of like all foods, and I find something good in everything. So I can assure you that if you're a foodie, you will not be disappointed in any place that you go to as long as you have an open mind. And don't necessarily ask what's in things. Just try it and then maybe ask after because there's a lot of things over in Europe that I don't think would be a hit stateside, but I thought it was delicious.
Reminds me a couple times traveling with my dad that he'd be like, "Here, try this. What is it? No, just try it."
Yeah, he victimized me a few times over the years as well, especially whenever I was younger. He got enjoyment out of watching me eat things that I couldn't even pronounce.
The main things that I remember was like it was either a calamari or an octopus that he had us eat the one time. So
Yeah, well, there you go. That's what's in the TL.
yeah,
I do have to tell you that I made the executive decision to walk just a half mile for an overlook of the town and the port. And we knew it was a steep climb, but in a half a mile, we climbed about 500 feet. And it was extremely steep. But the great thing is about that region was the humidity was so low. We were covered in sweat whenever we got to the top of it's called Mont St. Clair, and I would say that's maybe the most touristy thing there, and it's 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 gorgeous, and you can oversee everything. There's a church at the top of this hill, but I mean the steps just never ended. I mean you just climbed all the way to the top of the hill, and anybody that visits there, you have to do it. There's a way that you can drive up the backside, but that's kind of taken away from the experience. But uh, absolute gorgeous little town, and I couldn't recommend it highly enough.
so basically it's the Pittsburgh of Europe, especially with all the steps. Reminds you of doing city steps whenever we were younger for sports and training for that.
That's right. That's right. I was ready
Conditioning
for
for
it.
basketball, run the city steps.
Mm-hmm.
And keeping on the idea of the food, you told me before that every port you went into, you went to your tour guide and said, "Okay, what's this place famous for? What are the food options? What should I get? What do you recommend?"
Yeah. If you travel over to Europe and you don't do that, I think you're kind of doing yourself a disservice because that's part of their culture. Food is a big part of the culture, and once again, that's why we went on the Viking cruise. We're interested to kind of learn about different cultures and different cuisines, and it was different. I mean, you look at a map, you're like, we're not that far away from our last stop, but things would be extremely different, extremely different. And if you're willing to have an open mind, you're really going to enjoy yourself.
Your last stop on the cruise took you to Spain. You went to Barcelona.
Yes, Barcelona. One day is not enough. That's something that if if we were to do it again, you could easily go there for 2 weeks. It is a huge city. It is vibrant. Gorgeous. I can't say enough good things. Now, I can tell you that that is such a highly populated city. I mean, it's a major city. If you were to be pickpocketed, I would say that would probably be the environment because no matter where you are, there's a lot going on. But I can tell you at no point did I feel legitimately in danger. But I'm just saying the amount of people, the volume of people there, no matter where you went, no matter what time of day, our experience was it was extremely busy. But that was a very impressive stop for us, and I'm glad we ended there because I mean we were walking and doing so much every single stop, and we were I don't want to say that we were kind of tired of being on vacation, but those miles start to add up day after day, and we try to pack as much as we could in every single day. That it was nice to end at Barcelona because it was it kind of gave us a jolt because there was a lot going on there and it was something to see for sure. It was gorgeous city, extremely clean, uh, once again vibrant. There's like an energy in that city that we didn't see the previous stops, and Barcelona was really impressive.
How was the on-ship experience? They have several restaurants there, which one is called The Restaurant, which, I mean,
Okay,
this
so
with a prize for naming right there.
yeah, so here's what I could tell you about the dining options. Once again, I'm probably the wrong person to critique food because I'm very easy to please. The restaurant, we actually did not eat there. However, that is they serve the exact same food as another location on the ship called the World Cafe. The only difference is the restaurant is a sit down where they serve you just like a typical restaurant, whereas the World Cafe it's a buffet style. So the food was unbelievable. It was every single day there was something different. If you are a sushi lover, that was some of the best sushi that I've ever had, and that was available every single day. They had the one night we went to the one restaurant was called the Chef's Table,
Mhm.
and it was a tasting menu set up, and it was 5 course meal. It was it was outstanding. You need a reservation for that. There's a couple places that you need reservations for, but if you do go on a Viking and they offer the Chef's Table, make sure that you carve some time out and make that a priority. It was a really good experience for us. It was unique. The night that we went there, it was an Asian theme, and they didn't disappoint. It was outstanding. Another place that we didn't get an opportunity to go to, we had an 8:30 and 8 p.m. Reservation, which we kind of started getting into kind of a routine, and 8:30 was way too late for us to eat, so we canceled it. But from all indications, that was an outstanding place as well. But that was something that reservations fill up really quickly. So, and here's what's nice: you can even go early in the day and ask if there's any cancellations, and you can plug yourself in. But for the most part, we would go to that World Cafe just because it was convenient for us, and the food quality was it was off the charts, and you were getting the same exact food that you were getting in a couple of the other restaurants. It was just in a buffet style, so that fit in our schedule a lot better, and we always knew that it was going to be open for the most part.
And the World Cafe has the Aquavit Terrace, which is alfresco dining. You can actually eat outside on one of the decks. What
That's
was the
correct.
place? What was the place that you canceled the reservation for?
Oh, it was Manfredi's.
Freeze, the Italian
Manfredi's.
place.
Yeah, it was the Italian place. It was just too late for us. But when we were talking to other people that ate there, they had a really good experience. The only complaint that I heard about any of the food on there, um, which kind of blew me and Julie away, was somebody was eating the exact same night that we did at the chef's table, and they were complaining about the portions. They were complaining. Um, they said all they really wanted was to order. They didn't know what they were getting into, um, so they wanted to order their own food. Well, that's
Mhm.
not what it was. And these people were kind of looking for going to Europe to have a hamburger and a hot dog, and it was kind of I was just shaking my head at it, like you're coming all the way over here to experience a hamburger, and that's what you want to hear. But they complained about it. Outside of that, everybody seemed to speak very highly of, and there's we met a lot of people that only travel with Viking, and they're done with other cruise ships. They said, it's Viking or nothing else. And they say they've never had a poor dining experience as well. So no matter what you're interested in, food wise, they can accommodate. So for those people that were complaining that they didn't like the quality of the food at the chef's table, which by the way should never come into question because it was well thought out and the chef did an outstanding job. They could go to the pool grill and they serve burgers and hot dogs pretty much all day long. Plus, you can get the room service and they can bring you whatever food that you're looking for. Pretty much, I think it's 23 hours a day that they're open, so only 1 hour a day that they're not open for the room service.
And they also have the Winter Garden that has afternoon tea, and the Mamsen Norwegian Deli, which Viking, they're made founded in Norway, so they have that, which I think that's kind of unique that it's Norway. Oh, you're everything's European, and wherever you're gonna towards your destination, they still have the Norwegian Deli.
Well, yeah, I mean, it goes with their theme. It definitely goes with their theme. The you were mentioned though with the Winter Garden, they have the afternoon tea. There were a lot of people that made that a priority. They were back on the ship to have afternoon tea. Um, we didn't. I think we only one time kind of fit into our schedule, but there were other people that was every single day they were making afternoon tea. So that was a huge draw for others, just not necessarily for us.
How was your stateroom, the cabin?
It was very good. Cleanliness, there was nothing that ever came into question. It looked like it was just built yesterday. We had our person that was assigned to our room. He was always available. They had turn down service. They cleaned the rooms, I believe it was twice a day. Uh, the reason why I don't know for sure is because we spent so much time off the ship that, they may have attended to it, maybe even a third time, but it was at least twice a day. Um, the rooms were they were outstanding. The entertainment it wasn't over the top, but it definitely did the job. So they had movies if you wanted movies in your room. They had different TV options for you as well. The Wi-Fi, understandably, whenever you were out to sea, was a little bit spotty, but it did the job. Jolie had to do some work, and she kind of had to link into a few things, and it did the job. And just kind of you had to time it out right, but for the most part, it was good enough for sure.
Good to hear. So we'll wrap things up here now. Do you have a travel tip you would like to share?
Yes, travel with someone like my wife, because if you travel with someone like me, you're probably going to waste a lot of time. I mean, the days go so quickly that if you don't have a plan, you're in trouble. The nice thing about Viking is they can lay out and plan out your day for you. And a lot of times we did take advantage of what they had to offer. Sometimes we didn't. We would, add things on, or we would cancel something and just kind of tailor to what we were looking for. But uh, take advantage of what Viking offers, because they don't offer anything that isn't well thought out and well planned and high quality. So don't look at, because there's a lot of their excursions that there's no additional fee. So it may only be like a 2 hour tour where you could pay extra for, a 3, 4, sometimes an all day tour. But the excursions that we didn't pay for and that were included, they were still very good. And the reason why we didn't add on every single a location that we went is because we wanted to spend some time on foot and do things on our own. So, yes, take advantage of what Viking offers, because it's in most cases it's probably better than what you could probably find on your own.
And don't let the age, the average age scare you. That even though it is tailored for a certain age, it's tailored for a certain age for a certain reason. That these are the typical type of people who would want to see this. But if you are interested in that, if that works for you, you're going to get the great service that is geared towards someone who's a bit older. So they do take care of things for you more than what you would expect.
Hey, with age comes experience, and those people know how to travel. That's for sure.
Very true. My travel tip is to know what you want from a trip and plan accordingly. So if hey, I'm going to Europe, I want to eat in every restaurant I possibly can, then, that's your trip. It's okay. I'm going to Europe because I want to see the architecture and I'm not too interested in my food. I like what I'm comfortable with. Okay, plan things out accordingly. So know what you want to get from a trip and then make your arrangements around that. But also be outgoing and adventurous. So explore, try new things. You're going to these destinations. It might be a once in a lifetime trip. Make sure you do your things. Although if you go on one of these trips and you love it, it might be a once yearly thing now, not just once in a lifetime. But also know the local rules and customs. That this is one of the reasons that my sister did not like France whenever we went to it. Is that one time we went to a cafe in Paris and we ordered milkshakes, which in America, you go to Eaton Park or some restaurant and all right, just going to get something little to eat, and it's late at night, whatever, fine, that's okay. In France, if you go to a restaurant, you go to eat a meal. So we went, ordered milkshakes, and he comes back, it's like, what do you want to eat? And they had the little bread bowl on the table, and we were munching on that a little bit, and we got our milkshakes. We're like, oh no, this is all we want. He said, no, no, what do you want to eat? We said, no, no, we just want milkshakes. He's like, and he got mad, tore off the check, threw it on the table, grabbed the bread, walked away. And my sister was very offended by that. Like, he was so rude. But we were the ones who did the wrong thing in that situation. No, we didn't do it intentionally. And we were 19, 20, 21-year-old, college kids traveling to Europe for the first time. So we were unaware of this. But we did something wrong that violated the cultural standard, and they got mad about it, rightfully so. So know those customs, know what to expect, know what is expected of you, so that you can then make the most of your trip and not be offended whenever someone gets mad for justifiably getting mad.
Matt, and I think that's a really good tip. And the one thing that we experienced was, we as Americans are very generous typically with tips, and ask what's appropriate, no matter what country you're in, what's appropriate to tip, if at all. So in Rome, if you were to offer, and we found this out the hard way, like, what's appropriate, 20, 25, 30, what percentage? And they said, just drop €1. If you give any more than that, they're probably going to get offended. So that's something that you might want. My key was not to offend anybody. And I hope I didn't offend anybody over there, but yes, that's a great tip. Like, do your homework for sure, because there were things that we were finding out on the fly that I wish I would have known before going to a couple of these places.
Yeah, and actually, that was the advice that the flight attendant told us whenever we were going over to Europe of, hey, remember, you're going to their country, it's their rules. So play accordingly. So, Jimmy, thank you very, very much. This was a lot of fun. Is there anything that you would like to plug or have any final thoughts?
No, but if anybody's planning on traveling, once again, have an open mind and enjoy yourself.
And let me know about it, because I can certainly plan this for you. So I mean,
There you go.
So I went through all the training. I know all about this. Whether it's the expeditions, the river cruises, or the ocean, I got you. So, but if you would like to have a destination or experience that you'd like to have discussed on the Where Yinz Goin podcast, or if you'd like to share your favorite destination or a travel tip, feel free to contact me. I'd love to hear your feedback and your ideas. You can reach me through email at Matt, M-A-T-T, at dreamsbydesigntravel.com. I'm also on social media at Matt with DBD on Facebook, X, and Instagram. Website for the company is dreamsbydesigntravel.com. All that information is in the show description. So if you need to look that up, you don't have to necessarily write that down right away. Please like, follow, subscribe, leave a review, tell a friend, get the word out there if you liked what you heard. Please join us next time. We're heading out in that, and we'll see you later. Thanks.